right. Well, today we have Eriq La Salle on the show. Words I was not expecting to say yesterday until we got this confirmed, but he stars and executive produces this wonderful show premiering in January on Prime Video On Call. Um, I have watched all the episodes. Thank you to Amazon. I've also spoken to one of your cast members, Rich Ting, about this, and I'm excited to talk to you. Eriq, thanks for your time. It's an honor to chat with you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're no stranger to the One Chicago universe. You've directed episodes in that world before, but here you EP and you star in this series On Call. As I said, it's got Troian Bellisario, Brandon Larracuente, yourself, Rich Ting, amazing people. I want to start out right out of the gate. What was the impetus or the idea behind setting this in Long Beach and Los Angeles? It's nice to have a Dick Wolf show, though, outside of New York or Chicago, which gives it a different sort of flavor.
And that's it. You look for different stories to tell, different ways to tell them, and different places to tell them. And so, the one thing about the Dick Wolf world is that the city becomes a character in and of itself. And so, Long Beach, which is hasn't been oversaturated, hasn't been overshot, so it feels fresh. We felt it was a perfect match for the show because the show itself is fresh. It's a fresh perspective of the style and how we shoot it. Having I directed half of the shows, so I directed the pilot and episode two, and then episodes four and five, and establishing the style in the pilot of how much steady cam, how much body cam, how much dash cam, how much phone. So finding that perfect balance and that ingredient, the finding the right ingredients was really cool. But there was because it was a freshness, there was no frame of reference. We couldn't just dust this off and say, hey, you know what, let's borrow from this show because that show does it. No show that I know of is doing what we're doing. So it was only fitting that we found a place that felt not overused, so you don't feel like, oh, you're just doing the same thing that other cop show did here in Los Angeles or New York or Chicago. So it was a perfect fit. And then also in trying to really capture the nuances and the diversity of a place. And Long Beach is a very culturally diverse place, and the foods and the people, the music, and so that just all makes for better storytelling, quite honestly.
I love it. Yeah, and Rich Ting said the same thing, having been born and raised there and then going back and filming. He mentioned there was a couple scenes uh where they're on the freeway and they have some people in custody under investigation. He felt like because he did ride-alongs, he said these characters were so believable. Everything about it is great. I want to talk about your use of dash cam, your use of body cam and cell phone. It's very and a lot of runner shots, long shots where things are happening. Um, how do you do that? Because it's like I've seen other shows do it a little bit, but you do it a lot in this series where you're just constantly getting in the shop, and then there's the shop camera, and then there's the body cam, and then there's the cell phone cam. That seems like a lot of editing, at least from a civilian
Well,
perspective.
yeah, I mean, it is, but at the same time, there's a certain type of liberation with that because it starts organically revealing itself of what camera feels appropriate. So this is a very emotional moment. What kind of camera do we want capturing that particular emotion? This is an action sequence. What camera do we use to draw the audience in? This is a suspense moment. So when you start doing that, it becomes, the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. And you say, okay, let's do this. Let's have 10% of body cam. Let's have 20% of regular cam. Let's have you start finding the ingredients, the proper ingredients, and just the right amount. I'm not going to say it became easier. I think there was
Okay.
definitely a period before we truly felt we had it what we were shooting more. So I would shoot a scene one way and then I'd shoot it another way. I'd shoot it with one camera and then shoot it with another camera. Sometimes you can't shoot one scene both ways because we have to have the body cam on while the body cam can detect a cameraman or a camera person, so sometimes you would have to do it just a body cam pass. Sometimes you would do a regular cam pass, dash cam, that kind of defines itself because that means the car is parked in the right position to capture things. Cell phones. So, like I said, everything started defining itself, and it was just up to us to capture the magic.
Well, episode one had me hooked. I was like, who can I get to talk to about this? Because it's just so good. And I cannot Lori Loughlin. I mean, what a pick. Aunt Becky playing the police captain. You have nailed it with your casting. So let's talk about your character because, albeit this takes place in Long Beach, you play uh, you're the sergeant Lasman on this. Now, the interesting thing about this is you it has a very much LA old school Rampart vibe to it. That first look you give to the camera in the first episode where uh, the rookie's going out for a ride. Let's talk about your character. This is very intense because your character, and we're not spoiling anything, is seems to be part of the old guard, the way things are used to be run, but also has been and has succumbed to the new rules of policing. How do you get into this character, and how much research took place before you really were able to get a good feel for him? Because he's intense. Even the looks that you give and those conversations in the locker room are just really, really hardcore.
Well, it started for me with the sideburns.
Yes, the sideburns. That's very LA old school Rampart, man. I mean, for
Once I
real.
once I grew the sideburns, I was like, okay, I'm on the way. I'm on my way. So my very good friend of mine, Brian Lute, who is our technical advisor on Chicago PD,
Oh
and he came
yeah.
out and helped establish this show. And he just leaned over one day and he said, "You know what would be really cool? What I think you should do?" I said, "What?" "I think you should grow sideburns for this character." And when you're an actor and when you're an artist, listen, you take good advice, man. And so, I was like, and I thought about it, but it actually, yeah, because this guy represents old school. He's trying to find a balance of, his way in the world. He's a bit of a dinosaur, but not fully there. So there's still he can still learn some things and he's still open to learn some things, but he's also kind of set in certain ways. So it's just really the balance. But the cool thing I like about the show, one of the many cool things I like about the show is that no one way of policing is perfect. Old school, new school, left, right, up, down, conservative, liberal. There's no one perfect way. And I think this show exposes and uplifts what works in certain ways, what doesn't work in certain ways. So all of these cops have to figure out their way in this new world. And that's what Lasman, my character, represents. A cop who's trying to figure out how does one police a community that he loves. My character is from Long Beach, born and raised. So he loves the city. He's trying to figure out what's the best way to police it. He also knows the old way of doing things, whether I like it or not. Some of them were very effective, some weren't, some need to change, whether I like it or not. So it's really about all of these cops trying to find their way and find the best way of policing for them. And there is no one way. It's not a monolithic profession in any way. And so it's really just trying to find that.
Yeah, the sideburns definitely add to the character. When I first saw you come on the screen, I thought, oh man, this is going to be interesting. Also, a one Chicago Easter egg that you give fans, Monica Ramon. It's good to see her in the first episode, albeit her time is cut quite short. Um, well, congratulations, Eriq. I have to say, I'm very excited that we had a chance to meet with you today. I've been a fan forever, and when I first saw you involved in the One Chicago universe directing and being on the other side of the camera, it was really cool to see. Do you prefer one versus the other, or is it just as an artist and a creative, are you just happy to do whatever you can?
Yeah, I love telling stories. I'm a
Yeah.
storyteller, and so any way that I get to tell a story, I'm happy. You know, sometimes they hit you a little differently or fulfill you a little differently, but at the end of the day, they're all very fulfilling, and it's my passion. Being able to do the trifecta here of, you know, acting, directing, exec producing, is definitely a highlight in my career personally. You know, I've done it. I've done the writing, acting, and directing in something. I've done the acting and directing in something. This is the first time on this level. Of course, when I was doing short films, you know, it was, you know, I'm financing it, but this is, you know, on this level for major studio, major producer. This is definitely a highlight, and so I'm enjoying every aspect of it and very passionate about it, and can't say enough great things about this show because like I said, this show is definitely one of the highlights of my career.
Yeah, we've spoken to one of your former coworkers, Noah Wiley, in the past about different things, and he'd ever asked me because we talked about ER in a conversation, and he was working on this other project with John Wells. But he said if you ever get a chance to talk to him, tell him I said hello. So he says hello, and this is very cool. Congratulations, Eriq. Thank you so much again. On Call premiering in January on Prime Video. Uh, Dick Wolf Universe, Eriq La Salle starring and executive producing and directing. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it very much.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.